Guys, I am super unorganized when it comes to tracking my business expenses, and it creates an absolute nightmare for my bookkeeper and my accountant. So I built a simple AI workflow in N8N that does it for me automatically. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to create this workflow for yourself or for anyone on your team so that you never have to worry about lost receipts or invoices again. So let's get into it. All right, so here we are in N8N. You can see the workflow in front of you, and it's pretty simple. It's not complex. You see a lot of guys building stuff, and I think for YouTube, the more complicated it is, the more people dig it and the more clicks they get. But I wanted to take those of you who are very new with this and show you how you can, with absolutely no coding knowledge or experience, build something that's really useful for your everyday life and business, okay? And so I think the best way to show you how this works is to actually run the workflow, feed it some data, and then I'll come back in and I'll chop it up and show you what's happening at each step, okay? So this is my Slack account. And what I've done is I've set up an AI, basically an AI API connection to a channel called Tara. And Tara is my AI assistant. I use her for a lot of different things, but today we're going to be using her to upload data. And I'm not going to get into how you set up a Slack account. There are other videos for that because I just want to show you how this workflow works. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it some data. So I'm going to come in here to my receipts, and I have two different types of receipts. I have a PDF receipt and I have a JPEG image receipt. So these can be invoices from a company. They can be receipts when you go out to dinner. It doesn't really matter. This workflow is not going to differentiate between the two. It's just going to give you the information that you need. So we'll start with the PDF. I'm going to import this, and I'm just going to say invoice, right? And then first thing I need to do is get this to listen. So when we're in test mode, what we'll do is we'll set it up and we'll ask it to listen to the Slack channel that we want to send our information through. Once we activate it and we know everything's working correctly, we don't have to have it. It's just going to constantly be listening. But for right now, we're going to ask it to listen. And then you're going to see this workflow actually process, which is why I'm doing it this way. So you can see it go through the steps. So I'm going to hit run. And what you're going to see is in just a second, it's going to start to work and it's going to come through, hit our AI agent here. It's going to do some more stuff here at the bottom. And then it's going to come through and update the spreadsheet for us. And then finally, it's going to send me a message back. And it says a workflow executed successfully. And if I come back to my Slack account here, you'll see that I actually have a thread reply. And if I open that up and we take a look at it, it says, congratulations, your receipt has been received and the spreadsheet has been updated. And then if I go to this little spreadsheet that I created in Google Sheets, you'll see it populated all the information, has the invoice number, has who it's from. This is actually a real invoice that I got from Riverside, which is what I'm recording this with. It's got the date. It doesn't have a due date, which I'll explain that in a minute. It's got a description of what it was. It's got the total amount, no taxes on that. So the total was $29. If it can pull information that shows whether it was paid or not, it will populate that in here as well as the dropdown. So I have one is paid and one is unpaid. And in this case, the invoice shows as paid, and so I don't have to do anything. And then I have the email address for support. So on most invoices or even receipts, you're going to have, there's oftentimes an email address for support. And so I had it put that in there. And then the other cool thing that this does is, let's say that God forbid you get audited, right? Or maybe your accountant or your bookkeeper wants to have track of the actual receipt or the actual invoice to go and reference. Well, I gone ahead and put the file in there as well. So if we want to come in and look at that, there's the receipt. So it's really cool, very simple. And let's talk about how this workflow actually works now. So we start off with our Slack trigger, right? That's what we just did. We asked it to listen and we did all of our operations inside of Slack. You could also do this a variety of different ways. You could use something like Telegram or WhatsApp. You could have it trigger manually if you wanted to. You could have it trigger via an email that you send to a specific email account. And so you could email your receipts to yourself, right? But we just did this with a Slack, and it basically just took that information from Slack and it downloaded the file for us. And that's all this did. And the cool thing about this, I can look at this in a lot of different ways. So I can look at it as a schema, I can look at it as a table, I can look at it as JSON code. And if that confuses you, don't worry, because you don't really need to know it at this point. But looking at it from a binary file, it's literally just pulled in the file, okay? Now the next step is we need to determine whether this is an actual PDF file or it's an image file. Because if it's an image file, we need to treat it differently. And so the very next node I have here, and I'm just going to pin this data so we don't lose it. My very next node here is a code node. And what we're basically doing is we're taking that file and we're asking it, is this a image or is it not an image, right? And so, or a PDF file in this case. And if we had other types of documents like Google Docs or Pages files, whatever you've got, I just find that PDFs and images are the two most common ones that you're going to use when you're trying to capture information. Okay. And it's going to try and figure out what that is. And then once it does, it's going to send it on to the next chain of events. Now, I told you before, I don't know how to write a stick of code. I did not write any of this. In fact, when I got to this point and I knew I needed something, I had to go to ChatGPT to figure it out. And so I want to show you how easy this is for those of you who don't have any sort of concept of how to do this. So I knew in my mind that I needed some way to tell whether it was an image or a PDF, right? So I just went to ChatGPT and I said, I need to write some code for a code node in N8N, which is the platform I'm working in, that will determine if a file is a PDF or an image. And watch this. Now I am in ChatGPT 4 Mini High. This is technically the best one to use for coding. And a lot of people use Claude for this because Claude is really good at coding. What I found is from the way I write and the questions I ask, I actually get a little better result from ChatGPT, which is weird. That shouldn't happen, but for some reason it does. So I'm just going to click go here. And what you're going to see is it's going to think about it for a minute and try and understand what it is I'm trying to do. And then it's going to write the code for me. So give it just a second. Boom, there it is. There's the code that I would need to plug in. Now, fair warning, this is not going to work the first time you do it. I probably spent 30 minutes going back and forth with ChatGPT with the code, and because I would get an error. So it would come in and it would come to the code node and it would break. And it would say there's an error message and I'm not really sure what's wrong and you've got a wrong line or this input is wrong or we don't understand this. And the easiest way to do it is just to take a screen grab. I just take a screenshot of the error message. I come back here, I upload that file. It's not going to work this time, of course, because I did it right. But I'll upload the file and I'll just say I'm getting an error message. And ChatGPT is so good now that it can look at the image and it knows enough about N8N and the workflow that it will go back in and look at what's wrong with the code. I can also download this entire workflow by coming up here and clicking download, and I can actually share all of the code for this workflow with ChatGPT and say, here's my entire workflow. This is what I'm trying to do. And this is breaking. And here's an image of what they're saying is broken. How do I fix it? And then ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, they'll just go in and they'll rewrite the code. And slowly but surely, through a little bit of back and forth and debugging, I managed to get this code node to function correctly and to accept the data the way it was being presented, and everything worked great. Okay. So after we decide whether it's an image or not, now we need to route that one way or the other. So I use here an if node. And if you come over here and look and we just type in if, we'll see that an if node routes items to different branches based on true or false. So this is just binary. It says, is this true or is it not true? If it's true, I want you to go this direction. And if it's not true, go this direction. Okay. So if we click into this, you'll see, let's just come in here to the schema because it'll be easier to look at. I'm basically saying, hey, the file type, if the file type is equal to an image, then I want you to say that it's true. And if it's not an image, then say that it's false. Okay. And where do I determine that? Well, this is what's so cool about N8N and this platform is all I got to do is scroll down here and you see this file type right here, how it says PDF. All I got to do is if I just drag this up in, it writes the code for me. And I don't have to worry about writing that code myself. So again, coming down here, file type PDF, you just drag it in. And now you know, is it an image? No, it's not an image. Therefore, route it to the false category. If it was an image, then of course it would route it up the other direction. Okay. And it's showing a little mistake here because I changed this code up, but it'll work fine. Okay. So because we know this is a PDF now, because it's not an image, it comes down, and the next thing we need to do is pull the information from that PDF. We need to extract the data from that. So what we're going to do is we're going to convert that data into basically, I think what it's doing here, and again, not a coder, but I believe what it's doing here is it's taking this information that is in the PDF and it's organizing it in a way that our AI agent can use. And so to do that, all we're doing is we're just taking file 0. We're basically taking all of this file information, okay? And we're just going to convert it into something that's easier for the AI agent to use. And you can see down here under text, we've got all of the relevant information from that PDF file that's here for us to use. Okay. So we've sent the invoice via Slack. We've decided whether or not it's an image or not. If it is an image, we send it up. If it's not an image, we send it down. We extract the information from the PDF file, and now we take it into our AI agent. Okay, and this is where things start to get kind of cool. So inside of our AI agent, and again, I have an account set up with OpenAI, with ChatGPT. And if you don't know how to do that, in fact, if you don't know how to do anything in this process, one of the great things about N8N is they have an incredible documents section. I can just click on the corner of any one of these nodes, and it will take me to the area where it will explain what it is. It'll explain how to set up credentials and do all of that stuff. And it makes it super easy for us to run through this process. But once you've set up your OpenAI platform, and to do that, you just go to platform.openai, and it's going to come in here. You log in, set up your account, and then you add some money in, and boom, you're done. Now you've got an account that you can connect to. Okay. It's not a complicated process at all. And there's only about 10,000 videos online that explain how to do it. So I won't get into it here. But what I've done here is I've given it a prompt. So this is an OpenAI node that basically uses a GPT 4.0 mini verification or a model in order to process information. And I've given it some rules here. And I've said, you're an AI assistant that extracts structured data from invoices for entry into a Google Sheets database. The invoices can come from a variety of vendor types, and then I just put in a few there as examples. Your task is to extract the following fields from the invoice text input and return the output as a valid JSON object, because that's what the N8N understands. We always want to return it in JSON. Do not include markdown code blocks, just plain JSON. And then in here, I have given it all the things that I want to extract. And if you had other things that you wanted, all you would do is just add them here. So let's say that you also, let's say you want, I put in email, I put in status. Let's say you don't care about status because you're just uploading receipts. You can delete that one. Let's say you don't care about the due date because again, you're just using receipts and you've already paid for it. Okay. Anything in here that you want, you're just going to tell it that's what I want you to look for. And the AI is smart enough to go in and look at the data and say, oh, yeah, that looks like the company that sold him X, Y, and Z. And then I've got a few rules under here that says if any value is not available or clearly shown, just return null. And null for you non-coders out there just means don't show anything for that field. Then return only JSON objects. So I'm just telling it again, no additional text. Dates must be ISO format, so I give it the date format I want. And then description should combine all line items into one string, and string is just a line of text. And so what I'm basically telling it here is if you've got a whole bunch of stuff on the receipt, like you had 2 cocktails and a dinner and dessert and all of that stuff, I don't want you to create separate rows for that or separate pieces of information for that. I just want you to smash it all together and give it to me. And if we actually look at our invoice, that's exactly what it did here. And I'll show you when we do the image invoice, how it does that too and sort of combines multiple things together. And then all I've done is I've just come in here and again, JSON text, I found this little text file. This is all of the information that's on that receipt. And I feed it into there. And what comes out is all of that information that's organized now that the AI is organized for us. Okay. Super simple. It doesn't, the hardest part about this, if we're being really honest, is thinking through the processes that have to happen in order for all of this to work. So when I first started out, I didn't have the code node. And I just had this, if it's an image and if it's not an image, then go one way or the other. And I didn't understand why it was breaking. Like, why is it not just routing it based on whether it's an image upload or a PDF? And it's because I have to tell it to do that. And if I don't tell it to do that, it doesn't know to do that. So it's kind of like having almost like a junior employee that doesn't understand the steps to putting a product together. And if you don't tell them that, hey, you've got to have all of these products and you got to do all these things in the right order, you can't build it. And so that's the hardest part. Once you get through that, the rest of it's pretty simple. Now, after we process that and the AI has organized the information, now we have to come through and we create another switch here. And basically what we're going to do is we're just going to pass that information from the AI into, I tried this a lot of different ways because what I needed a way to connect these two together. And I was trying merge nodes and a bunch of different types of nodes in here to try and get it to work. And it actually just happened that this was the best one to use. So we're using this same sort of if node here. If this is true, then go ahead. And if it's not, then stop. And so basically this node says, once this is processed, hey, is there something here? And if there is, then it passes it along. And if it doesn't, it stops. And the same thing here. So the reason that nothing's happening here is because no data has been passed and there's nothing there. So it doesn't have to run this direction and it doesn't have to wait. So what was happening with the merge node was it was waiting. So it was coming down here and it was compiling the data and everything looked good, but it was waiting for information to come from the image side as well. And I realized that, hey, you can't use that because it'll wait forever. So instead, what we did was we used this if node, and now we can move on to the final step, or soon to almost the final step here, which is to now parse this invoice. So now we have to take all of that information and we now have to organize it and we have to connect it and tell it where everything goes. So again, I didn't write this code. All I did was I went to ChatGPT and I said, here's what I need this to do. I need you now to take all of that data that was sent from the AI agent, and I now need you to put it together and give it all of the right strings and process all the right data so that everything works the way it should. And that's what this node ends up doing. Now, after that processes, and you probably didn't see it because it happened so quickly, but after it ran through that process, it then ran a second process. Because what I wanted to do was I wanted to make sure that the actual invoice was saved as well. When I originally built this, it didn't have this invoice in it. And I thought, man, I really would need the receipt, or somebody's going to need that at some point. So I should figure out a way to actually get the receipt into the spreadsheet as well. And in order to do that, after it's done running its initial process here and extracting all the data, it then downloads that Google Drive file. I'm sorry, then it downloads that file into a Google Drive account, okay? So if I open this node up, what you're going to see is I created a special folder on my Google Drive called Original Invoices. And once the file is done processing here, it then downloads that file to that Google Drive folder so I can collect the receipts. And then the second node here, this second node, it changes the who can see it. So it changes the share settings so that anyone with the link can view it. Because again, if you guys have played around with Google Drive at all, you know that Google Drive by default, every file that you upload is set to restricted. And you either have to give an individual access to it, or you can change your settings in your Google Drive to have it be seen by everybody. Well, I didn't want to have to do that every single time I uploaded a file. So I just went ahead and made sure that, hey, once you've uploaded the file, make sure that that file is set to anyone can view. And that's all I did here. So a Google Drive account, I connected that. Resources of file, okay? Then the operation is share. So we're going to share it, and then we're going to share by ID. And then I just went into my Google Drive and grabbed the file ID, which I think is, should say ID in here, so, right here. I just grab that ID. And then I set the permission roles, right? So I set a role to the reader and anyone. So anyone can read this. They can't download it, they can't do anything else with it, they can just read it. I of course could set this to you can read or write, you can be the owner, the organizer, whatever, just somebody, a commentator. Reader is the one I chose and it works great. Okay? So that's all we're doing here is we're saying, hey, put that receipt that you just uploaded into Slack, upload it to my Google Drive folder, and then set the permissions so that anyone can see it. Now, once those two processes are done, okay, so now we've gone from sending it forward, we've downloaded the file, now we need to merge those two things together. So what I want to do now is I have two pieces of information, right? I have the link to the Google Drive receipt or the vendor information, and I have all of the other data that was on that receipt or on that invoice. And I need to push those two together so I can then upload it to Google. Upload it to my spreadsheet, right? And so what I've done here is I've said I want to append the last two items. So basically, I just want to take those two and I want to combine them. I want to merge them together. And there are a bunch of different things you can do. You can combine, you can use a SQL query. I don't even know what that stuff is. I tried it with combine first and it didn't work right. So I switched it to append and it worked great. And I think that's really a testament to just spending a little of the time working in it and thinking through your processes and say, hey, I know these things need to go together, but how do they go together? So if we combine them, we're actually smashing them and we're putting it all into one big ball. And for some reason, it didn't want to work. So instead, what I did was I did append, which stacks them on top of each other. So I want you to take both of those things, and instead of putting them and making them one thing, I want you to stack them on top of each other and then send the whole thing forward, which is what it did. And then the last node here that's really important is the aggregate node. And the aggregate node is just now taking those two things and then combining them into one thing. Okay. And aggregating them, basically all the data, so that it can now be sent to the Google Sheet. And so now we've merged it, aggregated it, we've taken it to the Google Sheet. And all I'm doing now, because I have all the data, right? I'm now setting the value. If you look at this, I have on my Google Sheet invoices and then a invoice number. So an invoice and like that hash thingy right there, right? Well, when this invoice comes through, the invoice number actually reads invoice number. It doesn't read invoice, pound sign. And so what I have to do is I have to say, okay, here's all of the stuff on that Google Sheet. I need to tell it what information goes where. And so in this case, if I take invoice number and I drag it over here, you'll see that it creates that invoice number. And this is what's so cool, is why you don't have to write any code for this. The vendor, if I just take this vendor one and I slap it down here, you'll see these are exactly the same, right? They're exactly the same code. And I just did that for every single one of these. I just ran down the line and created an assigned where I want all this information to go. All right. And then again, if you wanted to add an extra field or do anything like that, you can. It's super easy. And all I did here was connect my Google Sheets account. And again, if you don't know how to do that, it's pretty simple. You go to create new credential. You can sign in with OAuth 2, which is super easy, which means you just sign in with your Google account. And again, if you don't know how to do any of this stuff, it's super easy. Just come to the docs section and read through it. but I've connected my Google account. I want to select the operation is append row. And what that just means is I want you to add a new row to the bottom of the Google Sheet. I've selected the Google Sheet I want to work with, which is invoices. As you'll see here, invoices at the top is the name of this sheet. And then I also need to tell it what list, so what sheet number. So in this case, I've got two sheets. I've got sheet 1 and sheet 2, and I want it to put that information into sheet 2. So that's what this second one does. And then because I select sheet 2, it actually maps each one of these. So I can map automatically, which doesn't work because they're not all labeled the same. So I said map each column manually, and then it automatically pulled in all of the columns from that Google Sheet. And now all I have to do is, as I said, just drag over the information that I want to go in that sheet. Pretty cool, super easy. And then the last step of the process is I want it to send me a message back to Slack after we're done telling me, hey, it worked. Everything's good. So I open up here. I said, send draft back to Slack. This is just a Slack node that says send a message. I want to send it to my Terra assistant, right? So my Terra channel. So we're going right back to this Terra channel. And I want you to send a simple message. And this is just a hard-coded message. It just says, congratulations, your receipt has been received and the spreadsheet has been updated. Hard-coded just means it's going to send the same thing back every time. It's not dynamic. It's not based on some sort of information that we got over here. Okay. And then this just sends it back and makes sure it's going back to the thread and not back to the original channel message. Okay. And yeah, so that's how the whole thing works. Let me show you how it works if we use an image. Okay. So let's go ahead and ask it to listen again. We're to come back to Slack. We're in our Terra. We're looking good. Oh, we're in the thread. Let's get out of the threads. Come back here. Let's upload a file. Let's upload a image. So this is one I just had ChatGPT create me an image of a receipt. And we'll type in invoice again. You don't technically need to write anything. What would be really cool and what I'd love to eventually build this into is any note that I give it, like this was for a dinner that I had with this client, right? Or this prospect. I'm going to have that uploaded to the Google Sheet as well. That way, there's a record of, oh no, this wasn't just a business lunch, or this wasn't just a hotel invoice after I got done staying on a trip. There's actually some data in there that says what it was for, what the trip was for, and all of that. I haven't gotten that far yet, but I'm just going to go ahead and get go. Oh, there's a problem. Hang on. Oh, you know what it is? It's because I pinned the data here. That's why. Let's unpin the data. Now when we go to execute, we should be okay. So now let's come to Terra. Let's just do that again. Let's upload the JPEG image, invoice, and we're going to click go. And what you're going to see is that now it's going to come up. It's extracting the data from here. Then we're downloading the file just like we did before. We're updating the sheet, and then we're getting our message back. If we go check our message, we should see that we got a message back, which we did. And it says, congratulations, everything worked like it should have. Okay. And then if we come to our sheet just to check it, we'll see invoice number, who the vendor was, the date. And then you'll see here inside the invoice, if I come to the, actually show you what the invoice looks like. As I said, this is a fake invoice, but you'll see there's three different things here: software license, support, and custom development. Okay. You'll see it smashed all of those things together so that it's not creating three different lines. It's just an easy way for this for the sheet to be able to input the data. Okay. Now, how did we do that? Because when we came down this way, we extracted from the PDF and then we used our little AI node here to sort of compile that information. Well, we used another OpenAI node here. And what we said was essentially the same thing that we said with the other one, but this is an image extractor node. So if I come up here to OpenAI, they give me a ton of different options here. So I have an analyze image, I have a generate an image. If we want to do text message a model, we can classify text. So we can classify it in different ways. We can create an assistant. There's lots of stuff that we can do in here. This is an analyze image node. And what it does is it uses AI and OpenAI and ChatGPT to analyze the image and figure out what's listed there. Because as you know, when you upload an image, it's just an image. It doesn't actually list out all the things like on a PDF file. So we have to go and use an image analyzer to look at that image so that we know what's on there. And that's what this does. And essentially, the instructions are the same. We're using ChatGPT 4.0 instead of O4 Mini just so we get a better result. And then you'll see in here, it's exactly the same. Here's what you need to do. You need to try and find these things, what the invoice number is, who the vendor is. And this is the power of AI, is that it's going to go figure it out. You don't have to expressly tell it. Now, once it sort of figures out what it thinks the subtotal is and what it thinks the email is, now you've got to do some extra stuff with it. So again, once it's determined what's on that image, it takes it to this process, this if node, and it says, hey, is there something here? It's like, yeah, there is something here. There's this content. So here's all the content. And again, if you want it, once you get to this node, you just connect the content. It's super easy. You say, I want you to take this information, and since there's information there, I want you to go to the next step, and that's where we parse that data. And then we merge it with the document that's been uploaded, and we go through this process. Okay. I know it seems like a lot. And again, I wanted to do this one as our first sort of like actual AI agent workflow because it is very simple. I'm going to be showing you some more in the weeks to come that are very complex. And I don't want to overwhelm you. What I want you to do is be excited about being able to come in and start creating some of this stuff. Because here's the truth of the matter. There's lots of software that does this already. It's not like this is something new or novel, but that's the beautiful part about AI is that we're coming to a point where we don't have to go and buy third-party solutions to things. We can if it's easier to do that, but imagine all of the little things that you use these days that you have to have a subscription for, you have to have a membership to. If we can build out some of this stuff on our own and we don't have to worry about that, how much cooler is that? And we can customize it to our own use cases. And I just think that this was something that I wanted to build for myself and I thought might be super valuable to other business owners because I'm so bad at keeping track of receipts and keeping track of all of that stuff that my accountant and my bookkeeper need every single week and every month. And so I thought this would be an easy way because I use Slack all the time. It's on my phone and I can just take a quick snapshot of a receipt and let AI process the rest of it and I don't have to think about it. So I hope you found this valuable. If you do, please like and share. And by the way, if this is already kind of overcomplicated for you, even though I try to do something simple, if you're still just like, man, it's just way over my head, and you're looking for an easier way to dip your toe into the world of AI, then I highly recommend you go check out Motion. They have an entire suite of project management tools that are backed by AI with auto scheduling, making sure that your team always stays on track. And they are recently introduced AI or have recently introduced AI agents so that now agents can actually work in the same way that I've developed this workflow here. They can assist you in the same way because all of your information, a lot of your documents, all of your processes and workflows are inside of Motion. And so if you haven't checked them out, if you haven't gotten a free trial, there's a link in the description where you can do that. Highly recommend you go check them out and make sure you subscribe. So we're gonna be doing a lot more of this. And I want to make sure that you are on the cutting edge, the bleeding edge of what's happening in AI, artificial intelligence, especially with agents and workflows. So thank you so much. We'll see you in the next video.